propagation is a lot of fun, and it's really easy to do. There's a number of ways you can propagate plants at home. You don't need a greenhouse and special equipment to do it. You can do it with containers you can purchase from a garden center or even things lying around the house. One way that I like to propagate plants is by using a self-watering propagator. That's taking a bowl, such as this one, and filling it with a mixture of either peat moss with vermiculite and perlite, or you can use just a mixture of perlite and vermiculite, or just vermiculite itself. Perlite is the white material that you see in the larger chunks, and it's very lightweight, it drains very well. Vermiculite is kind of silvery and spongy looking, and it's the smaller silvery chunks that you see in the mix. The next step is to get a small container like this one, put some beeswax or something to stop up the hole in the bottom of the container, and then press it down into the mix so there's good contact with the growing media and this container on all sides. This is going to be where we put water that slowly leaks out into the mix to keep the cuttings moist. Next, we need something that we're going to use for cuttings. In this case, I've chosen a coleus today to be the material that we use for our cuttings. A coleus roots very easily. Just take a cutting from it, such as this. You'll want to remove the lower leaves on the cutting. And if there's any leaves left that are larger, you can even cut those in half, like this. The idea is to reduce the amount of leaf surface that can transpire water out, because you don't want those cuttings to dry out. Now, something like coleus will root very easily without any additional help, but there are materials called rooting hormones or rooting powder that have the hormones in them that cause plants to root even better. And rather than dipping the cutting in this and contaminating the bottle, you put a little bit of rooting hormone in a container and then just dip the cutting in it, shake off the excess, and you can see the white material there on the cutting. Then open up a little hole in the mix, place the cutting in, and gently press the soil in around it, just like this. Then we would continue to fill in all the way around here. We don't have to just use coleus. We could use rosemary and other plants that we're wanting to root. And then the final step would be to put some water inside here, inside the little container in the middle, and allow it to slowly leak out. Now, if you have a large, clear plastic material like a dry cleaner bag, for example, you can put it over the whole thing as a tent to help hold in moisture. But with most cuttings, that's not necessary, because this continues to allow the water to move out into the mix and to keep it very moist. Let me show you some other ways that we can also root cuttings that work very well. You can take a 2-liter pop bottle, or even a smaller container like a water bottle like this, and you can either cut it completely off about 3 inches above the bottom, or I like to leave just a little bit attached so it works like a hinge. That way it doesn't tend to fall off very easily. Then we would put our mix inside of here. Make sure first that you punch holes with a ice pick in the bottom so that it drains well. Place the growing mix or the rooting mix inside. Place your cutting inside, and then you can just take this and set it somewhere, and it'll be a little mini greenhouse. Now, when you do root cuttings, you want to make sure and put them in a bright place but out of direct sunlight. If the sun is baking in on them, it'll cook them. It gets very hot, just like your car does on a hot summer day. So we want a bright light but not direct sunlight for our cuttings. Another way that we can root cuttings is to use a little 4-inch pot and a bread wrapper, just the kind of sandwich wrapper or bread wrapper. This is a sandwich bag that fits over the pot and works like a mini greenhouse. The same concept works well, and when you purchase plants, you usually have a few of these pots left over. So that works also very, very well for cuttings. One final way to root cuttings is to root them in paper pots. To make a paper pot, you just take a strip of paper and something that's round about the size of the pot that we want to make, and wrap it around, leaving a little bit sticking over on the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this all the way around the container. And then we'll fold the bottom under and kind of press it in like this. And when we're done, it slides right off of the material you used to wrap it, and you have a little paper pot that works very well. You can fill that with soil or growing mix and place them in a Ziploc bag, and you would have your cuttings in here. I like to blow a little extra air in the bag so that it helps it stay open. And that way it stays open. And you can take this and even thumbtack it up underneath your porch in a bright area but out of the direct sunlight. And as long as this material is moist, you've got good cuttings that are healthy, a little rooting hormone on them. Within 2 to 4 weeks you'll have a very strong cutting growing, and it'll be time to move them on into another container to grow. And the same is true with these cuttings that we started in the self-watering propagator. Once you begin to notice new growth occurring on the cuttings, that's the time when you want to lift them out gently and repot them up in a larger container for growing. So those are some tips for growing your own cuttings. It's really not that difficult, and it's a lot of fun. Try it yourself at home.